Going back now to this person you mentioned, the auditor, the practitioner in Scientology, just how much training does this person get?
He goes through very intensive training, usually in a city somewhere in the world. He attends an academy, and he is trained there upwards to, well, it actually isn't fair to say the total time of training, because he's trained very intensively and so on. He's trained there sometimes a year, sometimes more, and then his training is normally finished off by coming to a higher level organization and so forth, and he is trained there for more than a year. But the overall training of an auditor compares to the same number of class hours in college of about 12 years. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to study in this particular field. You're handling the raw stuff of life. And his case, his beingness, of course, must advance proportionately to his study. And he has to become better and better. In other words, his IQ has to go up, up, up. The higher the level that he is qualified to audit at, why, the more improved his own case has to be.
You've mentioned two things here, beingness and IQ, which is intelligence factor. Are these two the same?
Oh, no. The beingness, we might put it under the heading, would be the ability of an individual to live or to handle the environment around him. In other words, to be something and to handle things around him. And intelligence is a more or less arbitrary factor. The grade of 70 is something, I think, a moron, and 100 is 105, something like that. That's pretty bright. 138, well, that's genius, and we go up from there.
Could I just stop you here? Did I understand you to say that a person's IQ can be raised through Scientology?
Oh, yes, yes. This is the one thing that Scientology has upset the world's universities with. They used to say that IQ never changed. Nobody could ever change. Nobody could be any different than anybody ever was. And this was quite interesting, because when we finally demonstrated this with their own IQ tests, why, they became very, very upset and began to test much more widely. And they tested people before Scientology processing and after Scientology processing, and uniformly found that their IQ had raised.
Who's they?
The professors, the fields, the schools of philosophy, schools of psychology, and so on.
But surely you've only got as much brain as you're born with.
Oh, no, and brain has nothing to do with it. Brain is a sort of a, well, I don't know, brain is brain. What it does, I'm never quite sure. But, and I don't think anybody else is. But the person, as a spiritual being, is capable of using his brain, or so on. The brain is a sort of a switchboard. And if you said that a telephone switchboard, then, was the intelligence of the corporation it served, this is about the same statement that the brain establishes the IQ of the human being. It's not, just not true. A being is a being. He is a spirit, and he actually can exist independent of his body. This is one of the more interesting discoveries in Scientology.
Now, an auditor in Scientology must have beingness and a good IQ. What other talents does he require to be a good auditor?
Well, a person has to have very, very good moral fiber, you might say. He has to, you can't, and we will not take anybody who has even the faintly bad background and so forth as an auditor. He has to be pretty well educated, his general education certificate, something like that. He has to have a desire to help people, and this is not everyone.
You said just now a bad background. In Scientology, what is good and bad? Does it conform to the normal moral standards of society?
Oh, yes, very much so. Very much so. Same.
¿Querés aumentar tu inteligencia? Contactate con nosotros. Te podemos ayudar.